Hi everyone, my name is Tuba. I'm one of the co authors of a non fiction book called Society Girl. Sitting with me here today are Zafar Masood and Sayyida Amna Hassan. Zafar Saab, as you all know, is a development and social impact focused banker, entrepreneur, public sector expert with around 30 years of proven exceptional success stories in banking, development finance, energy, and corporate governance. In May 2020, he miraculously survived PK 8303 airplane crash in Karachi. His colleague has dedicated a book to him called The Miraculous Survivor. His first book was on economics and business titled Out of the Box Structural Reforms for Pakistan, and now we are here today for the launch of his second book, Seat 1C, A Survivor's Tale of Hope, Resilience, and Renewal. Sitting next to him is Amna, a journalist focused on climate change, animal conservation, and terrorism and national security. Her work has been published in several media outlets, including National Geographic and the Pulitzer Center. She also serves as a private investigator for international law firms defending Pakistani clients accused of criminal activity based on thin or inconclusive evidence. We are going to start the session with a reading by Zafar Saab.
Thank you for everybody being here. I'll start out with the read from a chapter called Dues. Just to clarify that these are the emotional dues that I'm talking about. These are not the financial dues. Being, being a banker, people generally misconstrue the fact, but this chapter is all about dues. Um, Some would wonder why would this title of 1C is so important. Arguably, people believe that my survival was owed to the seat location. But the fact of the matter is that I don't buy that conviction. I believe that it was God's will, and it happened because the God wanted its own way of this to be happened this way, but nothing to do with the state. But nevertheless, the publisher thought that this is something which attracts the sale, and they decided to name it as Seat 1C. Um, to begin with, from the chapters in Dues, um, when at the time of crash, at the time, the flight crew had already buckled themselves into the seats opposite and beside me, and the cockpit door had flown open. I could see that the crew members were bracing themselves for the worst. And I knew with irrevocable certainty that their fears were not misplaced. Yet, as I thought about the impending crash, a voice inside me told me that I was going to survive. I remember being completely embroiled in an argument with this voice. I must have experienced the brief ripple in the space time continuum that survivors of near death experiences have spoken about, for it felt as though I had all the time in the world to convince the voice about the logical outcome of the crash. I told myself, or for that voice for that matter, look, this crash is inevitable. There's no way it will be averted. And still I heard the same response from within me, the unshakable belief that I would survive even if the plane crashed. I know the more cynical among you will chalk this experience down to the ravings of a man facing death. Perhaps I was just reverting to my default setting as a single man. I often talked about myself, so the experience was not singular.
Thank you, Zafar Saab. So I'm going to start with a very, very basic question. What was the, sorry, and I think something that all of us also want to know, what led you to write the book? Was it a cathartic process? And what do you hope people take away from it?
So it's quite interesting. In late 2000s, early 2021, I was invited to write an article for one of the newspapers. And I was specifically told to share my post-crash experiences. And without any preconceived ideas of about, how many of those needed to be there in number or otherwise, I just went with the flow. And as I went along, I figured out that they turned out to be almost 10 of them. Um, and it could have been 9, it could have been 11. There was no intention that, I will make it a even number for that matter. But it turned out that way. And at that time, I realized that perhaps these are some unique musings which I needed to share with the others. I hope and I pray that nobody went through that experience what I went through. But since I've already gone through it, I think I owe this to people to share those with them, whatever way that could help them improving their lives. Some of them were part of my early childhood development learnings. Some of them were new learnings, some of them were reinforcements. But nevertheless, those were there. And some tweaking was also took place. So I thought that it's important to write something about it, and especially I also realized that in this, transitory world, something of permanence has to be left behind, and this book is a kind of a contribution on my part to leave something permanent in this transitory world. I have tried to avoid any sort of drama or I try to make it very matter-of-factish. But the fact is that the accident itself, the episode of the whole, the crash is so emotional, and it's so, it's so sad that there are certain parts of it which could trigger some kind of emotion in the victims, families, for which I apologize upfront, really. But I must acknowledge, Tuba, here the great work done by Amna on this book. While I had the basic structure ready, but my own thought was that I would like to come out with a literary piece which I would like to read, which I would like to relate to. And 2-3 things which came out there, other than the story itself and its learnings, was also the fact that some kind of, it's important to understand how this has happened elsewhere, some kind of tinge of history, the civilizations. This is not something unique to myself as such, but it has happened in the past. And I also wanted it to be a very interesting read, so in terms of flow and in terms of English. The English that the people who have read this book, I must admit with the hand on my heart, वो अंग्रेजी मेरी नहीं है बिल्कुल. मेरी अंग्रेजी इतनी अच्छी बिल्कुल नहीं है. वो सारा क्रेडिट जो है वो आमना को जाता है. और जो आप उसके अंदर हिस्ट्री भी देख रहे हैं, खासतौर से ग्रीक हिस्ट्री एंड ऑल, उसमें ज़रूर मैंने कुछ थोड़ा बहुत आमना से कहा था कि ये कवर कर लो, वो कवर कर लो. But that credit goes to Amna as well. So, and I think that has made the entire, this work of labor I call for myself more relatable and readable thanks to Amna.
I mean, Amna did do a fantastic job. It was a great read, very easy for me. But my next question's for you, Amna.
I do have to say, Zafar Saab's being very humble right now. So it was a very collaborative effort. I mean, it had to be collaborative because it's essentially a memoir, and the memoir is backed by or supported by some secondary research. But at the end of the day, it's a very personal book. And like he said, the idea was fleshed out before I ever got involved. And so even though in some parts of the book you have my words, it is still very much his voice that's sort of propelling the narrative.
So that actually takes me really into our second question. Ji.
यहाँ पर ना बिकॉज मेरे कुछ कॉलीग्स भी बैठे हैं, स्पेशली रज़ा बैठा है बेचारा सबसे ज़्यादा, तो रात वो मेरी फेस करता है। इसकी को 8 या 10 इटरेशंस हुई हैं। So, आमना को मैंने इतना तंग किया है इसके अंदर, इतना तंग किया है, और आमना को बाय द वे पकड़ना इज़ द बिगेस्ट, इट्स अ चैलेंज एंड अ हाफ।
वाओ आमना, सारे पोल खुल रहे
आई
हैं।
टेल यू मैन, इट वाज सच अ अपहिल टास्क। किताब लिखना इतना मुश्किल नहीं था जितना आमना को पकड़ना मुश्किल था।
This
बट
is
शी बट आमना, अगर ये आमना का काम नहीं होता तो ये इतना आपको अभी इसमें उस किस्म का रिस्पांस नजर नहीं आता।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। So Amna, what was the writing, research, fact-checking process like? आपको कितना टाइम लगा बुक को put together करने में, and what was the most difficult part for you to write and for him to also write?
Yeah. Okay. So we started with just general conversations about the memories that Zafar Saab had about the crash, and then I would go off from there and try to fill in the gaps. So, for instance, before the plane crashed, you lost consciousness. Okay, sorry. Can you guys hear me now? Acha. So before the plane crash, Zafar Sahib lost consciousness at one point, and then there was a gap that we needed to fill. We need to figure out what happened after that and before the plane landed in Model Colony. And what we did there was I spoke to Zubair. Zubair is the only other survivor of this crash, and he vividly remembers that day. So his input was very, very important. I spoke to eyewitnesses on the ground. I spoke to residents of Model Colony who saw the plane crash, people who pulled him out of the wreckage and then took him to an ambulance. I spoke to paramedics, and when that was happening, I think that was what made the story feel real, because these people were in the thick of it, in the thick of that chaos, right? So they remembered what kind of smells hung in the air when they were pulling people out. They remembered sort of the chaos and the very visceral kind of panic that they felt while they were doing what they were doing. So we had all of those accounts, and we also had recordings. We had a recording of the pilot's conversation with ground control. We had Civil Aviation Authority's reports that basically investigated the crash. And they had a lot of detail. I mean, at the time that I was writing this book, it's been a while now, but at the time that I was writing it, I could have told you from memory which part of the plane fell on which part of the street, because the reports are that detailed. And because there's some of that detail is time-stamped, it also made it very easy for us to sort of construct a timeline of events as it happened. So before I ever put pen to paper, I wanted to know, okay, before, during, after the crash, ho kya raha tha? So when the plane was, let's say, 9,800 feet in the air, it was flying over Makli, it was higher than the required descent profile. What were the people on the ground doing? What was the paramedic who sent out the ambulances doing at the time? How far were the people who pulled you out of the wreckage? How far were they from the crash? So we wanted a sort of geospatial understanding of the place in addition to the exact times. And I think that's what really helped us put together a cohesive narrative. I know that sounds very clinical, but it didn't feel that way at the time, because when we did all of that, we realized how many things had to happen in a very particular way, in a very particular order for Zafar Sahib to survive the crash, and it was miraculous. So there were very clear lessons that you had from different aspects of the crash, and so once we were done with constructing the basic timeline, we wanted to make sure that वो जहाँ से वो lesson pull कर रहे हैं, हम narrative में उसको वहाँ पे insert कर दें. And you're right, it took a lot longer than we thought it was going to take, mostly because I was off in the mountains. I was traveling for work, just so you know. I wasn't just trying to escape Lahore. Yeah. The final part of your question, you said what was difficult to write. I think for me, and I'll let you answer. But for me, I still think that it was the rescue scenes because, for one, there was a lot of chaos, and with chaos comes chaotic memory. And memory and trauma they have a fairly complicated relationship to begin with. And when you're trying to collate several eyewitnesses' accounts into one cohesive narrative, that can sometimes become really tricky. And the second reason is because आपका एक eyewitness, a civilian on the street sees something really horrible happen, right? They somehow manage to go in, save somebody, come out. They are then going to have very gruesome details that they've observed about that place and that time. And they could make for a very sensationalist account, if we're being honest. But that's when it becomes dangerous because as a writer, you're sort of walking a tightrope. So you want to depict the horror of the time, but you also don't want to be too graphic because 98 people didn't make it. So that was difficult for me. I think disasters in general tend to draw voyeurs, and that also happened there because a lot of people would travel from interior Sindh weeks after the crash to just go and see what the plane crash looked like. So people in Model Colony were already very annoyed by it. People who were actively involved in the rescue were very annoyed by it. And so our sort of struggle was trying to figure out, okay, in literary form, are we fueling that voyeurism or are we being respectful towards the people who have suffered through all of this? So that's something I think I struggle with. But
I mean, if I may just add, when I read those parts, I think they were very chilling to me because the amount of detail that's involved, it's shocking, right? Like, how could this have happened and what happened? But I think you actually managed to do it really well because it's very sensitively written, which is what I like. Like, I didn't. एक हैवीनेस आती है जब आप ऐसी एक चीज़ को पढ़ते हैं और उसको सेंसेशनल करने में बिल्कुल भी टाइम नहीं लगता. But I think you guys actually managed a really good thing that I really enjoyed.
we tried really hard, and I know that at the end of the day, it's still a subjective thing, so some people might not agree with what we did. There's this book by Janet Malcolm called The Journalist and the Murderer, and whenever I'm working on something that involves trauma, I always go back to it because the book begins with this sentence. I'm probably not going to remember the whole thing correctly, but it begins with a sentence where she says, every journalist who's not too stupid or too full of himself to see what's going on knows that what they're doing is essentially something that's unjustifiable, right? It's morally indefensible. That's the word she uses. I don't think it's that extreme, but that is something that plays at the back of my mind every time I'm trying to put together a narrative that is this horrifying.
Yeah.
Am I doing something that's morally indefensible? And if I am, how do I pull it back?
I totally understand what you mean because I faced the same thing for my book, where even yesterday people were like, "But why did you do it?" So I completely understand. Zafar Saab, what was the most difficult part for you to pen down or work on?
Yeah, I think the most difficult part was, talking about my loved ones and how they have pulled me out of this, big trauma. Because, it wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have this amazing family who's here, my friends and my colleagues around, really. That was the most difficult part.
So I'm going to invite you to read a little bit more from the book, and then we are going to open the floor for questions. I'm just going to take 4 questions right now. We're going to have some more conversation, and then we'll open the floor for questions again, okay?
Okay, Tuba, so, मेरे ख्याल से जो इस किताब का क्रक्स है ना, वो जो मैं अब रीड करने जा रहा हूँ वो उसके अंदर है. और मेरा जो फेवरेट चैप्टर इसके अंदर है वो रिचुअल्स है, बाय द वे. जो मैंने जब लिखा था इसको तो इसका स्ट्रक्चर किताब का डिफरेंट था, जिसको बाद में आमना ने भी और जो हमारे इंटरनेशनल पब्लिशर हैं उनके जो शातरूपा ने, जो हमारे इंटरनेशनल पब्लिशर हैं, उनकी जो एडिटर है, उन्होंने चेंज करवाया था एंड दे मेड इट चेंज एंड दे डिड द राइट थिंग. तो वो रिचुअल जो है वो 6-7वें नंबर पे आ गया जो मैंने पहले पे रखा था. बट दैट स्टिल रिमेन्स माई फेवरेट चैप्टर इन द बुक एंड आई विल रीड फ्रॉम देयर नाउ. एक चीज़ जो बड़ी क्लियरली सामने आई थी वो ये कि जो मिथ स्टोरीज़ हैं एंड वो Arna has played a major role in my education there, and the rituals related to them are the same, or the rigidity of those rituals, by the way, are the same across all the religions and civilizations, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, it's ubiquitous. But then you need to realize what is important in life, what is not. And this is what I'm about to read is about that. It's slightly dragged out, but since this is the crux of the book, I would take the liberty of just going with the flow. To be fair, recent scholarship on religious extremism in Indonesia attempts to consider its many dimensions, theological, ritual, social, and political, and posits that extremism is in one dimension, such as ritual rigidity, may not necessarily be accompanied by extremism in another dimension, such as political extremism leading to violence. But we must acknowledge that ritual rigidity comes at the cost of being less open-minded and paves the road towards bias. I would even go as far as to say that rituals cannot be the be all and end all of your life. If your entire focus is on performing prescribed rituals, or worse, if you derive your value and sense of ethical superiority from your ability to perform rituals correctly, then you are being distracted from your purpose on earth. Rituals cannot consume your life or dominate your struggle towards self-improvement. Good actions are key to a good life. Rituals are undoubtedly important, and as we have seen, their psychological benefits have kept social scientists from dismissing them entirely as superstitious bilge. An individual's quirks or personal rituals may boost confidence or reduce anxiety, and collective rituals can help alleviate grief over a loved one's death or anchor a person's identity, but they can also be equally divisive. Actions tempered by good intentions are equally, if not more, important than thoughtless rituals. We cannot allow ourselves to turn into people who aimlessly mender their life, resting on the belief that our practice of prescribed rituals will elevate us in this life or in whatever comes next. Take the calm and peace that ritual worship offers you without drawing inflexible lines in the sand. More importantly, turn intent into action and work towards your goals. This may seem obvious to the reader, but it was something that was truly brought into sharp contrast when my plane was about to crash. During those final moments of consciousness, I did not think about the rituals. I had not performed on time. I did not think about the ritual I had not performed on time. I thought only of how I had lived my life. My faith carried me through that day, which I just talked about in the earlier read, and the depth of that faith was not determined by rigidity with regards to rituals. I had not been fasting, despite it being the most important day in the holy month of Ramadan. And while I gained a degree of comfort and peace from the personal rituals, I started following after the crash, I do not take the mistake of single mindedly focusing on ritual worship above all else. I have witnessed the end, if only for an ethereal, fleeting moment, and I know what will be of paramount importance to me when it comes again, and it will come again. My faith and my dues to people around me.
Thank you for that. Okay, guys, 4 questions. Who would like to go first? Yes.
I hi. Can you hear me now? Okay. My question is that what you just read out, the first reading, it's a very Socratic version, right? That you had a voice which was logically telling you that the plane is going to crash, and then that deep confidence inside that you are going to survive. But my question is that from the time that you became first aware that something is amiss, and then from the time that you lost consciousness, at least I would think there has to be some fear, there's some anxiety, some emotions. And to the extent that you feel comfortable, if you can share those original words, those original sentences that came to your mind. And I also want to, ask you that, and I understand that you want to respect the other victims and it's not surreal or too emotional. Is there a possibility that you still suffer from, PTSD, and you have not really understood or reached that trauma, and you're not expressing it or not willing to express it? So, thank you.
Will we respond every question? अच्छा ठीक है. मुमकिन है कि किसी को सवाल पूछने की ज़रूरत ना पड़े, फिर मैं रिस्पॉन्ड कर देता हूँ. सो नदीम, ये जब वो वाक़या हो रहा था तो इस तरह मैंने अभी पहली रीड में भी कहा और सब्सिक्वेंट भी में भी कहा कि वो माय इंटायर लाइफ पास बाय माय दिस थिंग कि वो माय चाइल्डहुड इन लाहौर एंड देन कमिंग बैक टू लाहौर. And at that time, only thing I was worried about was not the rituals. I was worried about the fact कि मेरी ज़िंदगी कैसी गुजरी है और अगर वहाँ पर कोई रिग्रेट्स हैं या नहीं हैं, वो मैं एट दी एंड एक रीड करूँगा, मेरे ख्याल से बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. बट क्या कोई रिग्रेट्स तो नहीं है ज़िंदगी में? देयर वर नो रिग्रेट्स. आई वॉज वेरी काम, नो फियर, नथिंग एट ऑल. आई वॉज एक्चुअली रेडी टू गो. और ये जो मौत का खौफ है ना, ये मुझ में कभी भी नहीं था. और उस दिन मैंने रियलाइज़ किया कि वाकई नहीं. और ये मैंने अपने बाप से, ये सामने बैठे हुए इनसे ये आई वुड से इनहेरिट किया है कि कि मौत से डरने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. और ये एक फेथ भी है ऑन द गॉड दैट जब मौत आनी है तो आ जाएगी. तो व्हाट इज़ दिस थिंग अबाउट, बट यू हैव टू बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर इट. और वो प्रेपरेशन जो है ना, उसमें ये नो रिग्रेट्स वाला एलिमेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. PTSD वाला एक्चुअली आप ऑलरेडी पहुंच गए हैं. जो मैंने आफ्टरवर्ड में लिखा हुआ भी है, जो कंक्लूजन टाइप की सिचुएशन है, वो है सर्वाइवर्स गिल्ट. तो एक 2 स्टेजेस पे आई वुड रिस्पॉन्ड टू इट. फर्स्ट तो ये था कि आई हैड टू गो थ्रू साइकेट्रिक थेरेपी. और वहाँ पर बड़ा ज़रूरी ये था कि कुछ 6 महीने आई वेंट थ्रू दिस with the danger that I could be stigmatized as somebody who's lost his consciousness. तो पहला तो बैंक चो कटो ना इन्हों. तो अभी OGDC के MD भी यहाँ बैठे हुए, वो भी कहते हैं कि जी इनको चेयरमैनशिप से भी हटाएं. तो अभी भी कह सकते हैं आप लोग, बट क्योंकि मेरा ख्याल है ये नदीम साहब ने जो कहा है शायद वो बात कर जाए. बट वो बहुत ज़रूरी था फॉर माई ओन सैनिटी एंड स्टैब्लिशिंग माई ओन my own fear कि वो नहीं है कोई इस तरह की चीज़ जो ड्रैग्स ऑफ कोई मेंटल हर्ट के तो नहीं रह गए. दोज वर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट. सर्वाइवर्स गिल्ट इज़ देयर, बट आई हैव ट्राइड टू कन्वर्ट दिस इनटू more positive an aspect. And than taking this as something which is there and bothering me.
Thank you. I think there are two questions up there. There's a hand up there. Did you also have a question? Yeah. And there's a question in the back as well. And there's a question in front as well. I will come again. Don't worry. I have seen your hands. I will ask you questions. I will let you ask your questions. We just have two more questions and then we'll continue.
Assalamu alaikum, Zafar. Moeen here, right in front of you, up there. Moeen Bartley. Great seeing you.
क्या हाल है?
बिल्कुल खैरियत.
मोइन बिल्कुल नजर नहीं आ रहा है.
इधर हूँ, इधर जी.
Okay, good to see you.
Great seeing you. Zafar, आपसे ये पूछना था कि लाइफ चेंजिंग वाला एस्पेक्ट आपने पहले भी इस पे टच किया है कि नियर डेथ एक्सपीरियंसेस आर लाइफ चेंजिंग. तो अब कुछ साल हो गए हैं. पहले तो आई थिंक आप इस पे रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहे होंगे. एक तो इमीडिएटली आपने किया होगा और फिर ओवर द इयर्स. तो वो रिफ्लेक्शन फिर अब क्या है in terms of future, purpose of life and future plans, given it's alhamdulillah second chance, तो अब क्या करना है, मुख्तलिफ क्या करना है, क्या इंस्पिरेशन है आगे 5-10 साल, और वो एक चीज़ आप थोड़ा शेयर करें हमारे साथ. थैंक यू.
So very quickly, मोइन, मैं इसको अभी जो लास्ट रीड होगी उसमें कवर भी करूँगा. बट जस्ट टू लेट यू नो अब बड़ा क्लियरली कोई परेशानी ज़िंदगी में नहीं है. यानी कि अब अगर परेशानी है तो ये है कि जाना तो है, तो जाते वक्त उस वक्त कोई रिग्रेट्स ना हो. तो द इंटायर लाइफ इज़ बिन ड्रिवन बाय दैट एंड गोल. दैट रिग्रेट उस वक्त ना हो, क्योंकि बड़े करीब से आपने अभी एक डेथ को देख लिया था जब आपको कोई रिग्रेट नहीं था. तो दोबारा जाते हुए कोई रिग्रेट ना हो. तो डोंट टेक एनी एक्शंस. कोई इरादा नहीं है कि दुनिया चेंज करनी है, या जो चीज़ मैं अपने ताईं अपने अराउंड कुछ थोड़ा बहुत उसमें कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकता हूँ, आई कीप ऑन कंट्रीब्यूटिंग दैट विच आई थिंक इज आई ओ टू एज माई सेकेंड लाइफ, इफ यू वांट टू कॉल इट.
Thank you. Can we get the gentleman in the front and then the gentleman in the yellow shirt, and the other people I will get to you after the thing. Thank you.
Hello. I actually live abroad, and when the chairman of LLF sent me the program, I was very curious about your book. They sent me the book abroad, had a very quick look. As a psychologist, you see, normally after that traumatic experience that you had, you tend to blame everybody, the airline, the security measures, things like that. Now, in your case, it wasn't the case. And that was actually attracted me on that, because you probably have change of your character and stuff, no? I mean, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. You see, the point is there are two things to this. One is the positive element. If you are a positive man in life, you tend to look at things in a very different light, in a very different way. The way I grew up, and my parents are sitting right next to you, they brought me with the set of values where it's the positivity which is more important than negativity. So, as they call it, my maternal grandfather used to say, always see the glass half full. So, that is the one element which is very important. So, you start looking at things differently. You stop blaming people unnecessarily for some things which perhaps they are not, responsible for. The second thing is that, look, if you have a strong faith in God, and I purposely read through the rituals piece, just to be clear that rituals and faith in God are two different things. This is my personal view. People tend to disagree with that. It's fine, really. But this is the way I am. People who know me, Kazim is there. He's my best friend. He's my cousin. He's my brother. He knows. My brother is there. My sister is there. My sisters are there. They all know all this. I've been like this all throughout my life. But that's been reinforced now, the fact that, it's the God. If you have faith in God, then if anybody you need to blame, then it's God, not the others. And perhaps yourself also, because your action trigger a lot of those those reactions to.
The
Thank you.
gentleman up in yellow.
Thank you for writing this book, Zafar Saab. Two short questions. One is, जब trauma में से गुजरते हैं, it changes us entirely. And studies show that people become either worse or better. So in a sentence or two, some good things that this Zafar Masood has, which he didn't have before the crash. And a smaller question, do you still laugh the way you used to laugh before the crash, or it's changed slightly?
अच्छा, एक तो मैं आप लोगों से सबसे शेयर करूं कि मेरा वन ऑफ द जो मुझे बहुत मज़ा आया उन इंटरव्यूज़ का, वो अदील ने किया था, वो लम्स का उसमें था, एंड आई रियली इन्जॉयड दैट वेरी मच. अभी भी जो इन्होंने सवाल पूछा है बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट सवाल है. सो आई डू लाफ, इनफैक्ट आई लाफ मोर नाउ, बिकॉज वो जो बहुत सारी इनहिबिशंस थी ना वो ख़त्म हो गई. टू कनेक्ट द सेकेंड पार्ट विद द फर्स्ट पार्ट, द फैक्ट ऑफ द मैटर ये है कि वो अब किसी चीज़ का खौफ नहीं रहा, कोई डर नहीं है, कोई ख्वाहिश नहीं है ज़िंदगी के अंदर. कि मैं पहले ट्रिवियल चीज़ों पे बहुत ख्वाहिश होती थी कि मैं पैसे बहुत कमा लूँ, मैं पोजीशन फलानी ले लूँ. कुछ लोग इसको बाय द वे अभी क्रिटिसाइज़ करेंगे, एंड राइटली सो, कि जी आपके पास तो यू आर वेल टू डू, पैसे भी आ गए हैं और आप जो है वो पोजीशन में भी ठीक हैं, तो आप तो ये कह रहे हैं इसलिए. बट मैं आपको बिल्कुल जेन्युइनली बता रहा हूँ, इन ऑल ऑनेस्टी बता रहा हूँ कि दैट इज़ समथिंग दैट completely out of my preferences now. So the priority, अच्छा वो challenge कुछ और हो गया. अब ये हो गया कि you are the privileged one in a way, not only because you have got the second life, but also you have the resources. So you owe more to the world than you were supposed to owe earlier. So that's how it's changed, really, Adil.
I'm just going to ask two questions together because I know there are a lot more questions people want to ask you, and then we can do the reading and end. What was your life like before the crash? What was your life like before the crash, and how has it changed? And what was the most difficult part of your physical and emotional recovery?
Okay, so जो डिफ़िकल्ट पार्ट रिकवरी का है ना, वो मैं आपको बताऊं, सबसे मुश्किल काम जो है ना वो पोस्ट क्रैश रिकवरी का था, both mental as well as physical. It needed a lot of willpower, especially the physical one. It needed a lot of courage and perseverance. Especially when you talk about orthopedic, these things take forever to go away. And अगर मेरे केस की तरह आपकी complication बहुत ज़्यादा हो, तो फिर तो ये चलता ही रहता है मामला. And you need to then start reconciling yourself to the fact that this is the way of life. You have to live it that way. Now, changing that mindset is a challenge and a half, and that is something which was very difficult. But अगर मुझसे आप comparison पूछिए between mental and physical का, तो I would say कि it's the mental piece which is more of a challenge than the physical piece. And for that, you need cognitive reframing of your entire mental this thing, जिसमें फिर physical का भी element आ जाता है, जहाँ आप reconcile कर लेते हैं. तो अगर आप mentally अपने आप को reconcile कर लें और बेहतर हो जाएं, तो I think you can get over the physical piece too. Physical के बहुत challenges होते हैं. It becomes frustrating at times. आपको रोज़ जाके physio करनी पड़ती है, social life change हो गई है, which I kind of like it as well because शाम को मुझे जाना नहीं पड़ता कि वो I hide behind कि यार वो physio करनी है जाके, तो लोग भी हाँ नहीं ठीक है आप जाइए, डिनर पे नहीं आ सकूँगा, मुझे physio करनी है. So वो एक element ऐसा है जो at times frustrating हो जाता है because then you are kind of hampered with your day-to-day life. But I tell you something, चाहे वो mental हो या physical हो, the natural therapy is the therapy of the people and the loved ones around you. You can really, move mountains, and you can, cross all the hurdles if your loved ones. Are there holding your hand? एट द एंड वो जो आपने सवाल पूछा है मैं उसका एक रीड के थ्रू ही जवाब देता हूँ.
बिल्कुल.
जो दो चीज़ें हैं जो बड़ी इम्पोर्टेंट हैं, जो कुछ आफ्टरवर्ड में भी हैं कुछ पहले भी हैं. वो एक तो है सर्वाइवर्स गिल्ड, जिसका नदीम ने भी थोड़ा सा राउंड अबाउट वे में जिक्र किया था. एंड दी अदर वन इज़ नो रिग्रेट्स, जिसका मैंने मेंशन किया आपको. मैं ज़रा आपको किताब से ये पढ़ के बताता हूँ जो मेरे उसके बारे में व्यूज़ हैं. और वो बड़ी इम्पोर्टेंट लर्निंग्स है इन माय ओपिनियन. एंड देन विद दैट मेरी तरफ से तो मेरी ये बात ख़त्म हो जाएगी. फिर जिसका कुछ सवाल होगा तो फिर.
आप फिक्र नहीं करें, 3-4 हाथ ऑलरेडी उठे हुए हैं.
अच्छा, ओके. I finally understood what it meant to feel alone in a crowd, and it was disorienting. Surviving a plane crash does that to you. It introduces incongruous thoughts you never imagined could exist in your brain. You feel horrified and devastated by the tragedy surrounding you, yet simultaneously, you also feel relieved at your survival. And despite that relief, you question why you survived. And when that survivor's guilt gains so much as a toehold in your mind, you find yourself wrecked by it. You recognize that what happened was senseless, but you still search for meaning in the debris left behind. It becomes a constant, unrelenting struggle, finding and coming to terms with grief and joy, pain and relief, depression and a renewed will to live, all at once. Perhaps the guilt I felt as a survivor could have been channeled into something more productive much earlier. I could have used it as fuel to offer support and compassion to other victims' families. In fact, this guilt has been my primary motivation for creating a more equitable world. So perhaps it is time to subvert the negative association we have with the survivor's guilt. If all of us individually see the privileges, let me just repeat this piece. If all of us individually see the privileges, wealth, or positions as we have as proof of our survival in an uneven, unjust world, then we should all have same degree of guilt that propels us to make changes. No regrets, which was the case when I was ready to go at the time of the crash and was all set to face my God, is another sentiment that has made life difficult for me. Every human is a mere mortal. We have to leave this world sooner or later, in one way or the other, but we have to keep in mind that when we are leaving this world, there shall not be any regrets whatsoever for not doing something at all, or perhaps for doing something differently. With that perspective, all your actions towards humanity and society change for the better. No regrets shall be the hallmark in making decisions in our lives to be a better human being, a better person. It is my hope that this book communicates the urgency with which we need to create an equitable world and is a damning indictment of the pitfalls of rigidity, narrow-mindedness, and failure to understand the need of others. I believe understanding this urgency is the only way for us to leave behind something worthwhile. We have to devise our own legacy, and the legacy must be driven by quality, not by quantity. It has to have the positive aspect to it rather than having how many people you have impacted. It's the goodness. It's the goodness of you towards those people. It's the goodness of that you have to find in other people. And that shall be the way of our life. And that should not be triggered by any disaster or adversity which I have faced. And that's why I'm sharing all of this with you. I will, Tuba, finish my read with the couplet of my maternal grandfather, younger brother John Elias Saab, and my favorite poet, which is there in the book, by the way. ये जिंदगी है साहिब, ये जिंदगी है साहिब, उलझेगी नहीं तो सुलझेगी कैसे, बिखरेगी नहीं तो निखरेगी कैसे. This is what the hallmark is.
Okay, some more questions. I know Khatija had a question there. And someone over there also had a question. There, yes. Right behind you. And on top.
Hello. I actually have a question about the writing process. I sensed from what the two of you have shared that there's not just your survivor's guilt, but a transference of that survivor's guilt on Amna while putting that book together. How do you process that?
I mean, this is honestly the first time I'm thinking about this. Because it was very clear to me that the book had to retain Zafar Sahib's voice. It's his memoir. I think some of that transference might have it's inevitable, kuch to ye transfer hona tha. I will also say it's not just survivor's guilt. I am a much more positive person after having spent time with him and interviewing him. I was very cynical to begin with. So it's not just the heavy, emotionally, burdensome things. It's also a lot of positive stuff. While I was writing, the thing that was most important to me was that I did not want to superimpose my thoughts about things as complicated as survivor's guilt onto the text. So I've tried to be very faithful to everything that I have from all of the interviews and all of the transcripts, because it is very easy when you're sort of waxing lyrical about something to go off into your own headspace and make it about yourself. So for me, the most important thing was कि ये voice जो है, जो बहुत inspiring voice है, that remains the central narrative that's propelling the text forward. But honestly, now that you've asked the question, this is honestly the first time I'm thinking about this on this kind of deep level. It's true. Thoda sa survivor's guilt. Thoda sa isliye bhi because when you're a reporter, you internalize everything. So that internalization is something I think all reporters sort of work on an individual level. But yeah, I tried is my answer. I don't know if I was successful in keeping my voice out and ensuring that.
I think you did actually keep your voice out of it. It was very much his narrative that was there in the book. And I think that's a skill that you learned as a journalist, right? Like you're telling someone's story and you did a beautiful job about it. There's a question over there, and then a gentleman over there in a off-white jacket.
Salam. It's working. Hello, Mariam Sufi here. I have a question about your writing process because I understand you went through the crash. It was first-hand trauma. And when you were penning down your thoughts, obviously everything was coming back and the guilt and everything. How were you able to manage to complete the book, and how many breakdowns did you go through? And especially once you've done writing and you read your own work, it's a very vulnerable state because you've put pure thoughts and emotions out. What was your thought on that? How did you feel once you saw the final print, once you read the book? How vulnerable were you at that time?
मैं आप बता दीजिएगा. मैं एक तो I'm very satisfied with what has come out here. There were many iterations of the manuscript itself. There were 8 or 9 iterations, after which the manuscript was ready, but then there were 3 or 4 others also which publisher kind of wanted them to be look like. And we were very open-minded about everything, by the way. Once I remember, Amna really lost it when the competing editor asked her to change something, and she said, she's asking for something completely nonsense. I'm not going to change it. I said, Amna, relax. We'll just manage it in a very tactful way. But nevertheless, they also have their point of view, and then carrying this whole through, I think it's turned out to be quite okay. I'm happy with this. Barring a couple of, typos and spelling mistakes which are still left behind. But rest of the stuff, I think it's quite interesting. I spent almost 4 years in this. And just to answer your, first part of the question, I find this to be very soothing. I actually find this to be therapeutic in terms of gaining my mental strength and venting things out. So in many ways, I've been able to connect this with my therapy, जो 6 महीने में कर रहा था, about the post crash. I find this to be therapeutic for me, writing this book, and that was very helpful, by the way, in flushing all those thoughts out and putting them on a piece of paper. And then I also feel, a kind of contribution on my part of sharing something that I wish and hope that nobody will ever confront.
Thank you, Zafar Saab. The gentleman over there, right
Sorry,
next to the camera.
They're just letting us know that we're running out of time.
Sorry, guys. One more question, I guess.
जी जफर साहब मेरा नाम अब्दुल बासित है वी हैव वर्क टुगेदर फॉर अ वेरी शॉर्ट टाइम इन ए थर्मल पावर कंपनी मेरा सवाल ये है कि व्हाट स्पेसिफिक चेंज इन एटीट्यूड बिफोर एंड आफ्टर विच यू फेल्ट एंड अदर्स हैव फेल्ट
सर अदर्स का तो मुझे नहीं पता, वो तो आप बेहतर बता देंगे, लेकिन जहाँ तक मेरा अपना ख्याल है वो ये है कि जिस तरह मैंने आपसे कहा कि मेरी कोशिश ये होती है कि मैं जो है वो अब कोई जो चीज़ मेरिट पे हो उसको डील करूं कोशिश ज़्यादा, और जो चीज़ बिल्कुल जिस तरह उसको डील करना चाहिए जैसे वो डिज़र्व करती है वैसे डील करूं. अब एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आई एम अ मेयर मोर्टल, आई एम अ ह्यूमन बीइंग. तो गलतियां तो हो जाती हैं, अपनी इंस्पिरेशंस और अपनी ख्वाहिशात अपनी जगह पे, यू बिकम सुपर ह्यूमन और वट एवर, यू आर अ नॉर्मल ह्यूमन बीइंग. गलतियां तो आपसे होती हैं और होती रहेंगी. उसमें बहुत सारे लोगों का ख्याल ये होगा कि मैं ज़्यादा एरोगेंट हो गया हूँ, जो मैं सबसे ज़्यादा प्रीच कर रहा हूँ कि नहीं होना चाहिए. तो कुछ लोगों का ख्याल ये होगा बिकॉज ऑफ दिस लाइमलाइट दैट आई एम गेटिंग. कुछ लोगों का ख्याल ये होगा कि शायद मैं बहुत ज़्यादा मेलो डाउन हो गया हूँ इन टर्म्स ऑफ नॉट डीलिंग विद द पीपल, या टॉलरेंस बहुत बढ़ गई है. इट्स पॉसिबल कि टॉलरेंस बहुत बढ़ गई है. मेरा ख्याल है बढ़ भी गई है. बाय द वे मेरे ब्रदर इन लॉ, मेरी बहन आई हुई है अमेरिका से, वो उसके मियाँ ने उस दिन कहा कि द वन बिग थिंग दैट हैज़ हैपेंड इन हिम, एंड आई टेंड टू एग्री विद दैट, वो टॉलरेंस लोगों के लिए बहुत बढ़ गई है. मगर वो इतनी नहीं बढ़ी है कि अब हर एक को मैं लीवे दे. बट येस दैट हैज़ इम्प्रूव्ड सब्सटेंशियली. जी.
And with that, I think we'll call it to an end. Thank you, Zafar Saab. Thank you, Amna. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for the LLF team for helping us set this up. Thank you, everyone.